Okay, I believe we are at the top of the hour. I'd like to get our seminar series started. I'm Patty Geppert. I'm the Director of Innovation for Velocity Texas. Welcome to the Methodist Healthcare Ministries monthly seminar series. As I mentioned, we are Velocity Texas, and we are hosting these seminars in conjunction with Methodist Healthcare Ministries. So Velocity Texas is based in San Antonio. This is kind of a overhead shot of our location. You see the brown buildings kind of at the bottom of your screen. That's our current campus, but we are growing to what looks like an empty field across the street. We are looking to expand our innovation campus to better serve the San Antonio region. So we are located on the east side of San Antonio, which is considered to be a historically underserved region. So by locating our innovation campus here, we can better serve the community in that region, as well as the general San Antonio region. So we're really excited to be here today to help support this region also. This is an overview of our campus. The brown buildings, again, are the part of our campus that are currently built out, and then that empty field across the street. You can see to the upper left there, that's what we envision an innovation campus to look like. So it's a campus that has buildings for collaboration to do research, particularly in the life sciences space. That's really where we feel that we can do the most good, is to help those small life sciences companies grow and become very strong and established companies, and then provide those higher paying life sciences jobs for the communities. So this is who we are in those buildings. We do a lot of innovation support. We are an accelerator and an incubator program, as I mentioned, predominantly for life sciences companies. This particular seminar series and this whole program that's supported by Methodist Healthcare Ministries is really focused on social determinants of health. So in our life sciences work, we spend a lot of time working on medical devices and pharmaceuticals and things that are used to improve health directly through the healthcare system. There are a lot of other determinants in an individual's community that are going to impact their quality of life and, in fact, their health. So these are called social determinants of health, and they can be such things as access to healthcare. If you don't have access to healthcare, if you don't have clinics and hospitals in your community, then that can negatively impact your health. If you do not have access to food, fresh food particularly, or clean water, that can negatively impact your health. Or transportation to get to the hospital, or access to education. All of these things can negatively impact your health. And through this seminar series and through this program, we're hoping to find solutions to some of those social determinant challenges that are felt in the South Texas region, to better improve the healthcare status of individuals in this region. So when we talk about social determinants of health, we're talking about a wide range of technologies that can actually indirectly improve healthcare in the region. In order to meet this need to educate people about social determinants of health and their impact, we have this innovation seminar series, which is meant to improve access to entrepreneurial support programs and foster support for startup companies. And then we are also running a community health accelerator, which is directly supporting companies that are developing, especially startups that are developing technologies addressed to those social determinants of health challenges. At the end of the seminar series, if you are a company that is developing some of this technology, we do have space in our accelerator, and we'd be happy for you to apply. There'll be a QR code at the end of this webinar that you can find a link to the application. So remember, that's a wide range of technologies. It could be water purification, it can be transportation apps, it can be any number of solutions that are addressed to these social determinants of health. Okay, so as we get started here, I'd like to introduce our speaker for today. Ms. Lara August. She's going to speak to us on angel investing. In fact, Laura has a long history of entrepreneurial and angel investing experience, and so I think she'll provide a lot of interesting and good information for us today. So Laura, at this point, I'm going to hand it over to you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and allow you to start sharing yours, and you can further introduce yourself.
Perfect. Thank you. Let's see if I can get switched over. All righty. Everyone can see that?
Yep, you're good.
Perfect. Okay, well, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm really excited. I'm glad we got to do a round of introductions just so that I could see the range of different types of businesses that have responded to the webinar. It sounds like we have an interesting mix. A little bit of history or, biography on me. So I'm an entrepreneur. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. I'm married to an entrepreneur and I run a marketing firm. And in our capacity as a marketing firm, we serve as fractional CMOs to a lot of very, very large small businesses. So if we were working with mid-sized companies, we might be working with professional CEOs. But because we're working with large small businesses, I get to work directly with entrepreneurs. And I've been doing that for 26 years now. So I have a lot of experience in entrepreneurship in general. And about 12 years ago, I was recruited as a startup mentor to begin working with the Techstars program here in San Antonio. And I've mentored through Techstars here and in Austin and through Trinity University's Venture Mentor program. And I get recruited for a variety of different things from judging pitch competitions and spot mentoring, things like that. And, being in love with entrepreneurship myself and getting to work closely with these startups who are in these accelerators and incubators, I became an angel investor at that time. And, met founders, believed in their vision, believed in their business, and decided to start investing in them. So that's when my angel investing began, was about 12 years ago. And since then, we've made a number of different investments, my husband and I together, directly in companies, in funds, in larger pools. I'm a member of Alamo Angels here in San Antonio. So actively have been involved in that for, I think, going on about 6 years. And my husband sold his company a couple of years ago, recently exited. And so now that we have more capital, we're more engaged in angel investing. So this is just something, we'll talk a little bit about who are angel investors and why they do it. If I can get my slides to cooperate. Here we go. So who are angel investors? I searched for, an official definition online, and I really liked the SEC. So they're generally high net worth individuals who invest their own money directly in emerging businesses. They're accredited investors, and many are current or former entrepreneurs themselves. I think that it's important, if you're seeking angel investment from an angel investor, to really understand what some of these things mean. So there used to be a rule for accreditation that you had to have a net worth of like $1 million or more. And they've recently, within the past few years, changed that so that if you operate in a field where you have direct knowledge of investing, if you were an investment management professional, you can take a quiz to prove that you're an accredited investor. So they've really loosened up these rules. So it used to be a pretty elite club to get into, and all of that has changed to make this form of investment more accessible to a wider variety of people. So for what that's worth, I think that this pool is widening. So accredited investors, entrepreneurs, if you look at who's in the room, when you pitch an angel club, or if you're talking to angel investors, it's accredited investors. There's a large contingent of entrepreneurs, family offices. There will be fund managers. So people who specifically put together, they do all of the evaluation and due diligence and find the businesses that they want to invest in. And then they create a fund and they find investors to invest in their fund, as opposed to having the investors invest directly in the individual businesses. So fund managers might be a good target as well. And then there are institutional investors that invest in very early stage companies. So there's a wide variety of types of people who are involved in angel investing. So if we look at, what are some of the assumptions that angel investors are making, when you look at angel investing as an asset class, there's stocks, there's bonds. Angel investing are long-term investments. When an angel invests in a company, they expect that money is going to be tied up for a longer period of time and inaccessible. And that's part of the reason why there were rules about having to have a high enough net worth to understand the risk and the length of time that the money is going to be tied up. So angels are looking at long-term investments, 7 to 10 years. This varies wildly. You could see exits in 2 years or 1 year. You could see things that take 15 years. So this is really the key here is that it's longer. It's not like you can put it in the stock market and get it right out. It's also incredibly high risk. Depending on who you talk to and what their portfolio looks like, you're only expecting maybe 1 of 10 to 12 that are going to be a wild success. You're hoping as an angel that you're investing in businesses that are going to be successful, that your investment will at least be a break even. But the reality is that you're gambling in a way. So when you make these investments as an angel, it has to have the potential for a really high return. So 10x potential, usually at a minimum, is what most angels are looking at. So if you're entrepreneurs considering raising money from angel investors, you really want to think about, do you want to, double your business? Do you want to triple your business? Or do you want to 10x your business? You really have to be intending to scale pretty dramatically for people that would consider themselves angel investors. There's lots of types of investors, but angels in particular are looking for opportunities that have tremendous scale. And the assumption is that there's going to be a higher portfolio return than other forms of investment. So there are several different investment stages, and these are words that you'll need to get to know. And so to kind of describe angel investing kind of comes in these first 2 rounds. So in the pre-seed and seed rounds. And if you look at, the stage description in a pre-seed round, you're typically only working on a prototype or a concept. You're very often pre-revenue. You may have a little bit of revenue. This amount of expected investment is, probably $15K, not for an individual investor, but kind of total for that round. And this can vary wildly also, but this is kind of a middle range. The people that are usually investing in pre-seed companies are very often friends and family, and the angel groups. And I've highlighted the word entrepreneurs because the entrepreneurs are expected to have their own investment in the business. As an entrepreneur and as an angel investor, it strikes me as odd that I would have to say that and educate, but I'm amazed at how many entrepreneurs don't have their own skin in the game. They don't have, a sizable investment of their own. So that's worth getting out there. So in the seed round, we're looking at, there's actual revenue generation and product market validation. And there's a beta or an MVP, which stands for minimum viable product. And there's usually a use of investment that's going directly toward building the team and improving the product. And, you can see kind of the amount of investment. This is what we see, the 50K to 1 million for a lot of the companies that are pitching the angel groups are kind of raising somewhere in that range. It varies wildly. And so these pre-seed and seed rounds are what we're referring to when we talk about angel investing. At these stages of the company, we may not know what the true outcomes of the business are going to be. We may not know what the full growth potential is. Creating a valuation is tricky, and we're going to cover valuation. Series A is usually when larger investors are coming in. We're raising more like 3 to 10 million, and this is where they're not angel investors anymore for the most part. They're venture capitalists. Some accelerators still support businesses that are in Series A, or they'll start, the accelerators can start earlier and they can go later. So again, there's variability within this chart. It's not perfect. But Series A is when these investors come in and they have a lot more say about, they're putting in larger enough dollar amounts that the terms of the deal become much more concrete. The valuations become more concrete, their controls become more concrete. And so, we're not going to be covering that as much. I'll highlight it quickly because there are some things that you need to know, but we'll focus this presentation more on the earlier stages of the angel investing. So what are the ways that angels invest? So I think it's important to understand that the company structure can affect the way angels are investing. So if an angel is investing in the stock of the company, if they're going to directly own common stock, you might use the word common stock in a corporation. In an LLC, it's going to be membership interest. Employees can own stock in a company, and that might be restricted stock. And there might also be stock options. All of those are forms of equity. You'll also hear the term safe notes, and that stands for simple agreement for future equity. So this is a very, very simple legal, very simple form of investment vehicle that was created by Y Combinator, which is a very large accelerator program. They saw that investing in companies with stock or equity requires having a very elaborate operating agreement, and you have to have a lot of documentation. We're talking 30 plus pages, and it could be even more than that. And the cost of the legal work of doing that at these very early stages in the company and the time that it takes to do that is just frankly cumbersome. And so the safe notes are like one page. They're very simple. They're very easy to use. You're not necessarily agreeing on a specific valuation. You're saying, I'm investing X amount of money with the intent that that could turn into equity in the future. And there's no predetermined timeline, but it's a way to say, I like this early stage company and I'm willing to give them money and invest in it. And when that first, priced round comes in, or Series A round comes in, where there is a set valuation on the company, at that point, this can convert to equity. The final thing that you might see is a convertible note, which is really a loan. So it's a loan into the company, which at the time that a transitional event occurs, you have a date on the convertible note where the note say it expires in 3 years, and you can at that point convert it into equity, or at an event where there's another round of fundraising, it can convert into equity, or you can just have it repaid as a loan. So notes operate in a little bit of a different way. So these are some of the different forms, and there are really big impacts in how these will work for your company. So if you're looking to raise money from angels, understanding the difference between these and which one is appropriate for your stage is really important. And usually the companies will set these terms as opposed to later rounds where the investors have a lot of say-so. So if you're trying to raise from angels, you'll want to have probably already made these decisions going in, and not allow the angel groups or an individual angel to set that. So there are also alternative ways to raise money. You can take out traditional loans, SBA loans. You can also receive grants. And I think that there is so much excitement around angel investing. It's pitch competitions are very showy, and it's very exciting. Everyone loves Shark Tank. And so I think that a lot of people get really excited about angel investing, but it's important to know that fewer than 6% of entrepreneurs actually raise money from investors at all. And so I think you really do need to consider whether using angel investing, whether you have that 10x scale, whether it's the right thing for your business. So I'm going to walk you through the fundraising process. We'll have to cover all of this really quickly. We're going to cover preparing for fundraising, the pitch, due diligence, term sheet and valuation negotiations, and then managing investor relations. So this is kind of chronological in terms of what you would need to do as a business. So when you're preparing for angel investment, one, you have to form a business. And there's a lot of people that have ideas. They're in a concept phase. And I see them out trying to network and engage with angel investors and talk about what investment might look like. And they're not going to be taken as seriously as if they've already formed a company. And so I think it's really important to have a business formed before really considering. It's one of the steps. If you're really pursuing angel investing, you have to have the business formed. And you have to get your financials and your entire business in order. And you'll see why when we talk about the due diligence. You need to write a business plan and have some projections. Ideally, you'll have cash flow pro formas. You'll know when you're going to break even, when you expect to be making money. That's going to be based on your experience, based on industry information. You'll want to have all of your historical documents and looking forward estimated to the greatest degree that you can. Every investor knows that that's a target and a plan and that those evolve over time. But it's important to have that documented to set expectations. And you're going to need to start researching and networking to identify those key investors. You don't want to take the first angel that's willing to give you money as an investor necessarily. You might want to shop around and find, I always look at it as, I see people that are in fundraising mode, and sometimes there's a sense of urgency. They've got to raise this money. They've got so much runway. But if you can find angels who are strategic, who can make introductions, who can become invested in your business, who want to help you out, that's an ideal scenario for both the company and the angels in many cases, because they're doing this because of their love of entrepreneurship and maybe also their knowledge of the specific industry and your business. So begin researching and networking, and then keep that organized. If you don't already have a CRM or a way to keep track of contacts, I think it's really important that you start one and that you identify investors and supporters very early on and start to keep that data organized, because once you get ready to fundraise, that can slow things down if you then have to go back and get organized. And you're going to need to prepare to pitch, which is the next step. So pitching can look something like Shark Tank, where you're standing in front of a room of angel investors and you have a very specific time frame, and you have to be polished and you have to be presented, in a certain way. And if you plan to pitch to a specific group, watching, seeing if you can attend or watch some of the pitches. Obviously, there's lots of resources online where you can see what pitches look like at different lengths of time. If it's going to be a formal pitching situation, you're going to have to be incredibly prepared. But the pitch doesn't have to be formal in that way. It could also just be meeting with somebody over lunch to talk about your business. So just know that one way you could be doing this is incredibly polished and professional, and the other way, you can be much more informal, but you have to be able to answer all of these questions either way. So ideally, even if you're meeting with somebody over lunch, you'll have a slide deck or a presentation prepared that you can flip through. That's very few slides that very quickly tells your story. So you need to present the problem and the solution. What is it you're really trying to solve? I've seen a lot of cool ideas that are solutions to problems that don't exist. So I think that's something that investors talk about sometimes, is you have to really clearly identify the problem and show how you're the solution. What is the market opportunity? What is the size of the market? How much do you expect to gain? What makes you unique in this market and with this competitive landscape? What are your competitors doing? What size are they? How much have they grown? How much market share do they have? You have to really deeply understand the competitive landscape and be able to respond to that. I've sat through so many meetings where, as someone's pitching their idea, you can see the investors on their phone and they're just Googling things. And then they start bringing up competitors that maybe the business isn't even entirely familiar with. So I just think it's really important to do this homework. Your business model needs to be clearly defined. How do you plan on making money? How do you plan on, breaking even? How are you going to serve your customers? And the business plan has to ideally have traction and milestones. You need to be able to identify what key points are in the development of your plan so that you can have a really good level setting with the investors in terms of understanding what the stages are. If it's a medical product, there are very concrete phases that you go through for testing and approvals and things like that. For other types of businesses, you may not require phases with different approvals or licensing or anything like that. So you may be setting your own business milestones to show progress. Is it we've developed a prototype, or we have, demonstrated that the audience is responding to the advertising, or, we've done phase 2 of the product development. So really thinking through what are those milestones? How much money will it take to get to each of those phases? When will you need to raise more money? So you're going to have to look a little bit beyond the angel phase to say what you think the plan is going to look like downstream. You also need to highlight your team and your advisors. So many angels will tell you that they'll bet on the CEO and the founders more than they'll even bet on the business idea. Because a great founder who's experienced will know how to pivot if the idea isn't working, where a great idea with a weak team, it could be the greatest idea in the world, but if they don't have the experience or the team to execute, that great idea may never come to fruition. So just in terms of what investors talk about, the founder and the team that you put together is critically important. You need to show that you have each aspect, the financial, the sales and marketing, the product development, all of the pieces of the pie very clearly covered with the team that you're building, or identify, I'm going to have to hire a CTO. And so earmarked in this plan is the hiring of the CTO or a fractional CFO or whatever it is that that you're missing. You could fill it with an advisor maybe to start, but if you know that there's a gap, you need to clearly identify that. And then what are the fundraising goals? How much money are you trying to raise? And how do you intend to use it so that you can imagine presenting all of this information to them? You're laying out everything, everywhere you've been, where you're headed, what you're looking for. And they can begin to decide, does this fit with my investment thesis? Am I interested in this type of business? Am I interested in the types of returns that they're presenting? Do I think that they're capable of doing it? They're going to evaluate everything through their own lens, and every angel is different. Once they're interested, they say, you know what, this is interesting, I might want to invest. You enter something called the due diligence phase. And this is by no means a definitive list of the things that they may ask for. So you'll have to present a cap table. And if you're not familiar with that phrase, a cap table will show all of the different percentages of ownership and any debt, that's already been raised, whether you have convertible notes, safe notes, equity, any breaks down the ownership of the company. You'll have to present the team, the advisors, and key investor profiles. They're probably going to want to go a lot more in depth because, again, if you're in the pitch, you have a limited amount of time. So you're going to kind of paint a broad picture. They're going to probably get much more in depth. And they may ask about other key investors because you may be able to say you found a strategic investor that's going to be able to make introductions or to connect you with strategic partners. So the other investors could actually be a really important piece of closing a deal with an angel. They're going to want to see all the financials. If you have patents, trademarks, or other intellectual property, depending on how deep they get, they may just ask, who owns this? Is it owned by the individual? Is it owned by the business? Is it, are there any other entities involved in the ownership of that? A lot of times it's this intellectual property that makes the business more defensible. And so you may have to show documentation of the ownership of the intellectual property just to make sure that it's very clearly spelled out. They may ask to see your operating agreements, your articles of incorporation, and basically anything else that they might think is important. So get ready to answer any and every question that someone might have about your business. If they get through that and they're still really excited about what they're hearing, then you enter the deal terms and valuation stage. So we've agreed that we're interested in investing, so let's hash it out. You may need some kind of valuation on the business. You may not, depending on the type of investment that you're receiving. Again, with a safe note or with a convertible note, it may or may not be necessary to have a solid valuation. But usually there is some form of expectation there. It's rare that would be completely open-ended. You need to know how much money is being invested, what is going to be the timing. It doesn't have to be all at once. It could be delivered in chunks over time. Some investors that I've heard will create milestones if they see maybe a deficiency in the team. You've said you're going to hire a CFO. Well, I'll give you, $10,000 now and another 10,000 once you've hired that CFO, because I think it's critical on your roadmap, and I want to make sure that that happens. Or maybe it's, I'll give you 10 now and 10 in 6 months, or there's a variety of different ways, but the money may not all come all at once up front. And then if there are any discounts, that's usually based on the valuation. And this gets a little bit more complicated. We could do a whole class just on deal terms for sure. The percentage of ownership that you would have in, what that equates to, what the founder vesting looks like, what the employee options might look like. Board representation, you don't usually see that at the angel stage. That's usually a seed A, a series A round, not in the seed rounds. But if you do have larger angel groups who are making larger dollar amounts, they may ask for a board seat or for a board observer seat, just so that they can keep an eye on their investment. And then liquidation preferences, anti-dilution protections, control rights, all things to protect the investors. So these things might all be included in the deal terms. Again, depending if it's going to be stock or equity, you're going to see all of these things detailed. If it's going to be a safe or a convertible note, some of these things may be not included at that phase. At this point, lots of people ask, how do you determine a valuation? And I have an artist palette up there because it is definitely more of an art than a science. I have been taking classes in valuation and in term sheets and in cap tables, and really trying to improve my knowledge and understanding of all of these and all of these terms, because it's incredibly complex, even though I've been doing this for quite a while. And I can tell you, I took a course that had, people from across the country talking about the methods that they use and some really great data on how companies are valued. And these are all different methods. So interesting that, there's different approaches and ways from, market value to what is basing it on the revenue of the business. There's scorecards. Every angel group may have their own scorecard. There's people who have developed their own algorithms and scorecards, and these methods may or may not be transparent. You may have a tool that you can use, but not see what the algorithm is underneath them. But what I found is that it tends to be industry and geographic. And that's, in these courses, if you look at the valuations of companies, they're higher on the two coasts. The same type of business, it's just going to be valued higher on the two coasts. Geographically, the types of, whether it's a safe note or a convertible note, or whether it tends to be equity, those things vary geographically also. There's also just kind of industry norms and standards. It's important to understand how you intend to value your company, to look further down the road at what you expect an exit might be, So again, raising money from angels, there's an expectation that you're going to be exiting, that you're going to raise a bigger round of money one day, or you're going to IPO or sell this to a larger company, or a VC is going to buy you out. That expectation exists because that's how angel investors raise these larger multiples. And so you have to, when valuing a company, look further down the road to understand what your ownership stake is now and what money on your roadmap you intend to raise at which points. And it's definitely an art and not a science. So I'm just going to kind of leave it at that and say that this will be one of the more fun parts of what you have to do. So oops, I went back, sorry. So post-investment, one of the things that angel investors get frustrated by is just a lack of communication. So once you've raised money from angel investors, they can be a huge source of introductions to future investors, a huge source of support. So regular communication is really important. You want to share bad news transparently and quickly. Angel investors can be a great source of introductions, assistance, and feedback. So one of the things that I see coming out of some of the accelerator incubator programs are, the companies get trained to send weekly or monthly emails that are very detailed, that highlight the wins, the losses, the KPIs. And they also have asks, they'll say, hey, here's something, does anybody know somebody at company XYZ? We're trying to get in the door there. Or introductions to this type of business or this type of consumer, or, I really see these emails as a huge way to stay connected to your investors and to keep them informed of what's going on in the business, so that whether you need help because of great opportunity moving forward or because things are getting sticky, they'll be a great support to you. It's fun to see the investors and the other stakeholders kind of respond to these emails with lots of great information. And then there may or may not be a board seat involved, as I've described. So it's more rare on the angel side, or a board observer, which they don't have any voting rights, but they can be present. So, again, early stage, that may or may not be part of it, but you'll have to be prepared to regularly communicate and, provide financials and updates to the investors on an ongoing basis. So common funding mistakes. There are organizations that get frustrated, that I've seen, businesses that I'm mentoring in particular, that don't really have enough traction. Traction's a word that you hear a lot in angel groups or among angel investors, is that they're not ready to make an investment because they don't see the proof. And that traction could just be substituted with proof. And that might be in expressed interest by an audience. It could be a wait list. It could be actual revenue. It could be a demonstration that a marketing approach has been successful. It could be other investors that are interested. It could indicate traction. If it's something that's in a very early conceptual phase, that's pre-product or pre-revenue, how do you show traction then? And it's really by demonstrating that the right people have helped decide that this is a great idea. So you can use other investors and other stakeholders for part of that. As I already mentioned, if you don't have the right team, so that's a red flag, pretty much every time, because you really are, as an angel investor, betting on the team. You hear the word uncoachable a lot. So if a CEO has an ego or appears to not be taking feedback or gets defensive when questioned, that's usually a red flag to investors who are entrepreneurs themselves and want to be helpful, and they're protecting their investment as well. They want to know that if a founder is struggling or gets into hot water, or even if things are going great, are they receptive to feedback? Are they willing and open to learn and grow and to receive help from people? it could also be that the valuation doesn't seem to make sense. You know, it's somebody that doesn't have a product and they're valuing their business at $2 million or $12 million or something. Like, it's just off the charts. It doesn't fit with kind of the industry or geographic norms. And so, you know, sometimes that doesn't make sense. If there is no market fit, or, you know, the idea doesn't appear to be defensible, we have a lot of talk about that. Like, hey, this is a great idea, but how are they going to protect it? Is there a larger organization that just can instantly spin up a competitive product? And, you know, or it's something that there's very low cost to entry. There's no bar. So anyone could, you know, spin this up and compete against them if there's no intellectual property or, you know, patents or anything like that. Or the market doesn't seem to be clearly enough defined. There could also be obviously concerns over any part of the negotiations and the due diligence, including like, how are they going to use this funding? What do their milestones look like? And, you know, sometimes people just don't pitch well and they can't answer the questions. I have definitely invested in people myself where the founder has every answer just ready to go. They know their financials inside and out. They know the competition. They can tell you about their historical performance, tell you about their milestones. It's always really impressive when you have a founder that has done all of that due diligence themselves and is fully prepared. So, you know, there are some pros and cons if you're considering, you know, raising money via angel investing. You definitely, the pros are early stage money. You know, you need money very early on to grow. You need access to expertise that these angels can provide if they are strategic, and the networks that they can connect you to. It can provide validation and credibility. And, you know, the early money, again, has more flexibility in the deal structures. Like, it's less rigid when you're using safes and convertible notes. So that can be advantageous. Some of the cons, though, are real. So there's dilution of ownership. If you don't need to raise money from outside investors, I don't know why you ever would. You know, other than, and I've met people, businesses that are cash flowing and doing well on their own, and they could definitely take out a loan. And sometimes we say, like, why are you raising money from angel investors? It just doesn't seem necessary. There's definitely more pressure to perform once you have an investor. You have to provide detailed updates. You have to be accountable for that investment that they've made. And so you'll definitely feel the pressure. The time and effort, fundraising itself. If you've decided to pursue a route that includes fundraising, you're not just raising an angel round, you're going to potentially raise, you know, several more rounds and a Series A round. And so founders usually have to divert their attention from developing the product and working on the business to, oh, okay, we've reached that milestone and I need to go raise $5 million. And that can become the tail that wags the dog. And there can be a lot of focus that is then diverted to the fundraising activities. And so knowing that that's a part of it, I think, is important. And, you know, just making sure that you're aligned with the investors. If the investors have different ideas than you do, that could lead to, you know, well, lack of support. It's your business. You still get to run your business. Early stage investors rarely have any control over the business. But, you know, it's not going to lead to more introductions leading forward. So you want to make sure that you have clear expectations. I have provided a whole bunch of resources. You can Google so many things. There are incubators, accelerators, there are software companies, there are list aggregators of angels. Like, there are so many things that you can find online. So I'm going to make this presentation available so that you have these, and I'm happy to follow up with you with any other questions that you might have. Gone through this really quickly. Again, each of these slides could most certainly have its own class, but I wanted to open up the floor to see what questions you might have and see if I can answer any of them. There's some in the chat too. I can try to scroll back.
Yeah, I'll read them. So Laura, I'll read some questions from the chat. We definitely have those questions. The first question is from Dave Ezra. He says, as a health tech company where development takes time and professional resources, the road to revenue is longer. We're pre-revenue, but have an MVP and have validated our hypothesis, but no revenue. Do angels understand this when considering investing?
So angels come from a broad swath of the population. So what I will say is that some angels will absolutely understand this and other angels will not. I didn't invest in anything healthcare related for, until very recently. And I didn't because I didn't understand it, because I didn't see, and I was not personally able to evaluate whether this company was at the right place or not. And that's just my experience. And, in the angel group that I'm in now, I've met lots of great people who are coming from a medical professional background. Many of them are entrepreneurs who have run startups, who have seen the engineering side of things, or they may be practicing professionals and have their own medical practice. And I have really loved getting to know a group of angels because I've started making medical investments based on their expertise. So this is one of the benefits of an angel group, is that you learn from each other, you begin to build these networks, and you have kind of, from my point of view, a buddy that you can ask, does this one make sense? What do you know about this? So you're going to find people that absolutely get it and that can ask you really intelligent questions. You're going to find a lot of people that have money and say, that sounds really cool, but I am going to have to pass. So it runs the gamut.
Very good. So then Dave has a question for me. He says, what is the success rate for the Velocity Accelerator program among raised companies with successful exits? So especially for this Methodist Healthcare Ministries Accelerator, this is the first cohort that we'll be running. So it is a 6-week program. We're open applications. We're going to select 4 companies to participate in the accelerators. And at the end of the accelerator, the prize, if you will, is the ability to run a pilot study with Methodist Healthcare Ministries. So you can pilot in the Methodist healthcare system or some of their partners. So that's what that the benefit of that is in particular. Companies with successful exits, we haven't had a cohort long enough. As Laura was mentioning, most exits are going to occur 7 to 10 years down the road, and we just haven't had enough experience, or we haven't been around long enough running accelerators. Obviously, this is the first cohort, but even in our previous accelerators, we haven't had enough time in order for companies. So I hope that helps. But I'd be happy to answer any other questions that you have on the accelerator. You can always contact us. There was a question from Charbit. Is it possible to receive the support presentation via email, and then again, the access to the replay link? On our website, we do have all the recordings from previous webinars, and Laura has, you want to explain your link tree?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a QR code. If you want to scan this, it'll go to a little link tree where you can download a copy of the presentation as well. So if you want to grab it right now, you are welcome to it.
Anybody have questions here?
Yeah, I see. How long does the process last from due diligence to negotiation? And that that can vary tremendously. Also, I think, from, if you're talking to individual investors one-on-one, it can go, depending if you have the company formed, if you've already decided on, the vehicle that you're going to use, whether it's a convertible note or the safe note, if you already have some of the paperwork ready and you have people that are interested, it can go really quickly. It can also be incredibly slow. If you're going to be trying to submit to angel groups to pitch, you might expect to wait months before you're evaluated and receive any feedback and have the opportunity to pitch. And then the due diligence period, it really depends on the individual or the group that you're going for. If this is a first time fundraising, I would say prepare for the worst and expect that it's going to take a long time. I've seen a lot of new founders who are very disappointed with the fundraising process, how hard it is to build an initial network of angels, to find the ones that resonate with you, to get through the due diligence process. A lot of angels are just real busy. And so just, getting people to respond can take a long time. And then, satisfying all of their information requests can take a long time. It's definitely one of the complaints that you hear is you could have hours and hours and pages worth of questions and documentation and just to get a no. So you have to be prepared to hear a lot of no's.
Thank you. So we have more questions online, but I want to take some questions from the room because I know that we do have some questions from the room.
I was just curious, as an angel investor, when there's such low chance of, sorry, I forgot my wording, but do they invest in multiple things, or are they in it just for the feel good, like they're helping somebody? Because if the chances of, what did she say was, the potential return is very low. So I was just curious.
No, it's a great question, actually. So I can tell you that there's a phrase that we use called spray and pray, which a lot of angels subscribe to, which is lots of investments. We need to diversify our portfolios and not, invest a lot in 3 companies, but to really build a portfolio of 10 to 12 companies at a minimum, because that's where you are protecting your investment, right? Knowing that many of these are going to have failure rates. So a lot of investors that become more sophisticated, I'm going to say, and are deploying more dollars are going to get better and faster at evaluating the companies. And, at lower dollar amounts, it's easy to invest a lot in a bunch of different companies. And that's where angel groups can be great, because lots of investors can pool their money to you as a company that's raising money. You may be able to get $50,000 from one group, but there may be 10 people that are only putting in, $5,000 a piece, which feels like really low risk to the angels. So I don't know if that answers your question perfectly, but it
does. And then I see this is more geared to the medical field, but for smaller businesses like mine and this gentleman here, where's the best place we can go to find investors for our type of field that we're in, like the restaurant business, basically?
Restaurant business is a hard one. So if you have an idea that can really scale to 10x, you're going to want to find people probably who are involved in the restaurant industry, who have a passion for it, who have an understanding of it. I think that those are going to make the better investors for you. You might have some spray and pray luck with some other people that like your concept, that are willing to put in kind of low risk, smaller amounts of money. But I think just making sure that you have a business plan to back it up, and probably looking for people that are familiar with the industry. And angel groups, if you don't know where to start, angel groups would be a great place to meet a lot of people quickly.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to ask a following question to this question is there a type of industry sector that angels prefer over others? So, we talk about direct to consumer or business to business or retail or restaurant or, things like that. Is there any particular sectors that you see a higher number of?
Absolutely. So yeah, you see a lot in software as a service, right? Infinitely scalable with minimal infrastructure change. So that's been a hot one for a long time. Healthcare is another one. There's some manufacturing. There are definitely certain types of businesses that scale more easily. There are definitely certain types of businesses that have niche markets that are sizable enough that, I wish I had the slide with me. So recently a course that I took showed the different returns based on the industry. And I'm sure you can Google and find things similar to that. So you can see which industries are returning the most for angel investors. And so the more sophisticated angel investors become, and the more committed they become, they begin to educate themselves more and to look into that. And so there are certainly things like consumer products are tricky to get funded for. Like that's just, I've seen more and more investors and groups that just start to like shake their head and like, if this requires retail shelf space and inventory and, you know, there are some that are less desirable for sure.
That sounds like things like total market size and scalability and things like that are important.
Absolutely.
Quality, regardless of the industry in general.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's see, we have a couple of ones. We have a founder here with a company called Sky Precisions. They're a new technology using drones to crop the fields. They would like to talk to angels to see if that approach is feasible for investors. How would they go about doing that?
So I think, you know, if you download these slides and go through the stages you could have some initial conversations with people and just, you know, run the idea by them to get some feedback. So reaching out to investors that are in that space or in adjacent spaces, and you could approach angel groups. And I think that those would be ways to just get some initial feedback, to really get solid feedback or begin the angel investing, you know, fundraising. You're going to need to go through the steps that are outlined in the presentation.
Okay. Let's see. Let's see. We do have some more. Charbet was wondering if an angel investor will stay in the company more than 5 years, 5 years or more.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it can range tremendously. I have some that I invested in 12 years ago that are just exiting now.
You do follow-ons then?
I have done, yeah, we've done sidecars and follow-ons as well.
Very cool. The project owner has to realize the yearly turnover as later 1 year after the funding raise. Okay, I'm not, Charbet, you might want to unmute and explain what you're asking. I'm not sure I read that correctly. Oh, no, she needs to leave the meeting, so.
Yeah.
Sorry. The presentation will be available either online in a recording form or through Linktree. Very good. I think that is it for the questions online. Any additional questions in the room? No? Okay. Thank you, Laura. It was an excellent presentation. Really appreciate the time that you spent. Great questions. I hope people go to your Linktree and download your presentation. Just full of incredibly good information. I want to make a pitch for our next webinar. Our next session is going to be in Mission, Texas, and we'll have the Eventbrite open for that very soon by the end of, well, tomorrow's the end of the week, maybe Monday. It's ways to work with the military. If you think that your technology would be useful to the military as well as the commercial or civilian market, then it's a great seminar to understand how you would make that entree into the military. And that is going to be on May 30th. And then I want to give you this QR code so that you have the information to apply for the accelerated program. If you are interested, if you think your technology is offers a solution to social determinants of health challenges, we'd be more than happy to look at your technology, your company, and consider you for the accelerated program, which will be running in the fall. Okay, I think we'll end up on that slide. That is all I have for you today, and I think that we're at the end of our time. So again, Laura, thank you so much for your time. Really
Thank you for having me. And please feel, if anyone has questions, I may or may not have answers, but I can try to help find answers for you and make connections. So I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you. We'll close out the meeting. I wish everybody a great rest of your day and have a great weekend.
Thank you.